The shock of your dad is sick. When you hear the words, your dad is sick, it's like the ground beneath you just cracked open. It doesn't matter how old you are, 18 or 48, it lands like a punch you didn't see coming. Dads have this way of feeling permanent, don't they? Maybe yours is the guy who could fix anything, a leaky faucet, a flat tire, your broken heart after a bad breakup. I think about my own dad, standing in the garage with a wrench in his hand, grease smudged on his forehead, muttering about how they don't make cars like they used to. He was tough as nails, the kind of man who'd shrug off a cold and keep going, because that's what dads do. They push through. So when sickness creeps in, it's not just a diagnosis. It's a betrayal of everything you thought was unshakable. You're left staring at this person who's always been your anchor, and now he's the one drifting, fragile in a way you never imagined. It's terrifying because it flips the script. Suddenly, you're not the kid who needs protecting. You're the one wanting to shield him. I remember the first time I saw my dad wince in pain, holding his side like he could hide it from me. He tried to play it off, cracking a joke about getting old, but I saw the flicker in his eyes, something vulnerable he didn't want me to notice. That moment stuck with me, replaying like a scratched record. You want to step in, to do something heroic, like he did for you all those years. Maybe he carried you on his shoulders at the county fair when your legs got tired, or stayed up late helping you finish a science project you'd procrastinated on. My dad once drove 3 hours in the rain to pick me up when my car broke down in college. No questions asked, just a thermos of coffee and a quiet, "Let's get you home." Now with him sick, you feel this ache to repay that kind of love. But where do you even start? That's the kicker. You can't fix it. Not really. You can't rewind time or bargain with the universe to give him back his strength. It's a helpless feeling, like standing on the shore watching a storm roll in, knowing you can't stop the waves. But here's where the story shifts, where prayer sneaks in like a soft light through the cracks. It's not about being a superhero or having all the answers. It's about sitting with the mess, the fear, the love, and handing it over to something bigger. Think about your dad right now. Really picture him. Maybe he's got that crooked smile you've known forever, or hands rough from years of work. Hold that image and let it guide you into those 8 minutes of prayer. It's not a cure, but it's a start, a way to feel less alone in the chaos. You're not powerless. You're just leaning on a different kind of strength. The unsung hero your dad has been. Take a second to think about who your dad is. Not just the guy who's sick now, but the man he's been your whole life. Maybe he's the quiet type, the one who didn't say much, but showed up every time it mattered. Or maybe he's loud and larger than life, filling the room with stories about his glory days. My dad was somewhere in between. I can still see him in his faded flannel shirt, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, reading the paper while Mom cooked dinner. He worked at a factory for 30 years, punching the clock day after day, coming home with aching knees but never once complaining. That was his way, steady, solid, like the oak tree in our backyard that weathered every storm. He didn't need a spotlight. He just did what needed doing, and somehow that made everything okay. What about your dad? Maybe he taught you how to throw a baseball, his voice patient even when you missed the mark 100 times. Or maybe he was the one who slipped a 20 in your pocket before prom, winking like it was no big deal. I've got this memory of mine from when I was 10. Dad spent a whole Saturday building me a tree house, sweat dripping down his face as he hammered nails into plywood. It wasn't fancy, just a rickety little thing, but to me, it was a castle. He didn't say it out loud, but I knew it was his way of saying, "You're worth my time." That's the thing about dads. They carry so much without asking for credit. Maybe he missed sleep to pay the bills, or skipped his own dreams so you could chase yours. Mine once told me he wanted to be a pilot, but life got in the way, marriage, kids, a mortgage. He never brought it up again, but I saw the way he'd stare at planes overhead, a quiet longing in his eyes. Now, with him sick, those memories hit different. They're not just stories anymore. They're a weight you feel in your chest, a reminder of all he's given. And when you're faced with that, his sacrifices, his love, his humanness, it's overwhelming. You want to tell him everything he means to you, but the words get tangled up. That's where prayer steps in, like a bridge between what you feel and what you can't say. It's 8 minutes of sitting with those memories, thanking God for the treehouse, the coffee runs, the unspoken I love yous. You can ask for healing, sure, but it's also a chance to honor him, to lift him up when he's too tired to stand tall. Picture him in his prime, strong and whole, and let that image carry you through. It's not about erasing the sickness. It's about holding on to the man he is, beyond the hospital bed or the medicine bottles. Prayer becomes your way of saying, I see you, Dad. I always have. What prayer really feels like. Prayer isn't some big mystical thing. It's not like you need a theology degree or a velvet robe to do it right. It's just you, being honest, in a quiet corner of your world. When my dad got sick, I didn't know where to start. I wasn't raised in a super religious house. Church was more of a Christmas and Easter deal for us. So when a friend said, just pray, it takes 8 minutes, I almost laughed. 8 minutes? I could barely sit still that long, let alone talk to God. But I was desperate, so I gave it a shot. I sat on my couch, the TV muted, and stared at the wall. Okay, God, I said out loud, feeling awkward as heck. My dad's not doing good. He's the best guy I know. Please help him. It wasn't poetic, but it was me, raw, messy, real. And you know what? It felt like unclenching a fist I didn't know I'd been holding. Think of it like this. Prayer's not a performance. You don't have to sound like a preacher or memorize a script. It's more like calling up an old friend, the kind who doesn't care if you stumble over your words. Maybe you're in your car, parked after a long day, the engine ticking as it cools. You close your eyes and say, God, I'm scared. My dad's always been the strong one, and now he's not. I don't know how to handle this. Give him strength. Give me strength. That's enough. Or maybe you're lying in bed staring at the ceiling and you whisper, he's my hero, God. Don't take him yet. It's not about the clock hitting exactly 8 minutes. It's about letting it out. For me, those first prayers were clumsy, but they grew into something I leaned on, like a warm blanket on a cold night. And here's the beauty. It doesn't have to fix everything to matter. My dad didn't wake up cured the next day, but something softened in me. I'd picture him fishing at the lake like he used to, the sun glinting off the water, and I'd ask God to bring him peace. Sometimes I'd cry, sometimes I'd just sit there, but every time I felt less alone. It's like prayer opens a window, letting fresh air into a room that's been locked up too long. You start noticing little shifts. Maybe you're gentler with your dad when he's grumpy, or you find yourself smiling at an old memory instead of sinking into worry. It's not a magic wand, but it's a lifeline. So try it. Just 8 minutes, wherever you are. Speak from your heart and let it carry you. You might be surprised how much lighter you feel when you're done. How prayer changes the air around you. Even if your dad's sickness doesn't vanish, prayer has this quiet way of shifting things, not like a thunderstorm clearing out, but like a breeze you didn't expect. When I started praying for my dad, I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Healing, yeah, but it was more than that. I wanted to feel okay again, to stop drowning in what-ifs. And slowly it happened. Not overnight, not in some dramatic movie moment, but in small, steady ways. I'd pray those 8 minutes every night, sitting on my porch with a cup of tea, watching the stars peek through the trees. I'd talk to God about Dad's laugh, how it used to fill the house when he'd tell a dumb joke, or how he'd hum off-key while mowing the lawn. And bit by bit, the weight on my shoulders got easier to carry. It's like this. Sickness can make everything heavy. The air, the conversations, the silence. You walk into his room, see him weaker than before, and it's like the walls close in. But prayer cracks that open. One night after praying, I went to see Dad, and instead of freezing up, I sat there holding his hand, telling him about a hawk I'd seen circling outside. He smiled, just a little, but it was there, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel crushed. Prayer didn't take the sickness away, but it gave me back a piece of us, a way to connect without the fear swallowing me whole. Maybe for you, it'll show up differently. Maybe you'll find patience when he's stubborn about his meds, or courage to ask him about the past, the stories you've never heard. Here's what I've learned. It's not about forcing a miracle. It's about finding ground to stand on when everything's shaking. Those 8 minutes became my anchor, time to breathe, to hope, to trust that we weren't alone in this. I'd picture Dad healthy again, tossing a football in the yard like when I was a kid, and even if that wasn't reality yet, it kept me going. So if your dad's sick, don't brush off what prayer can do. It's not a quick fix, it's a quiet strength. Grab those 8 minutes, on the couch, in the shower, wherever, and let it steady you. You're not carrying this by yourself, and neither is he. That's the peace it brings, not perfection, but a way to keep going without breaking. After watching, remember to like and subscribe to the channel. I have many good videos to share. Learn to give, and God will give you peace.